Welcome everyone. Good evening and thanks for joining us tonight. Our webinar topic is, what are my options for creating a will? And this webinar is in partnership with the Canadian Celiac Association and Wilfora. So I am from the Canadian Celiac Association, and you'll see Matt there as well. He's from Wilfora. This webinar is being recorded, and a link to the recording plus a survey and some resources will be sent to you through email tomorrow. So my name is Megan Thompson. I am the Donor Relations and Administrative Coordinator here at the Canadian Celiac Association. So welcome again. I would just like to do a quick disclaimer that we advise that you seek independent professional advice when making any financial decisions in terms of, in respect to the topic tonight of will creation. And before we get started, I'm just going to share some background information on the CCA. It is our vision that every Canadian with celiac disease is diagnosed and empowered. As many of you already may know, the Canadian Celiac Association is a registered charity, and for nearly 50 years, we have been advocating for safe food, empowering individuals with evidence-based education and information, and investing in research to help improve the quality of life for people with celiac disease. We have a client and peer support service, which is offered for free thanks to our generous donors. You can speak with our registered dietitian, peer supporters, or trained CCA staff, and they can provide information and advice on celiac disease and gluten disorders. So you can see the phone number there to reach our client support desk is 1-800-363-7296, extension 224. And you can also email askthecca@celiac.ca. We have a gluten-free certification program, which helps give our community peace of mind when shopping for certified gluten-free products. You can access our gluten-free product finder on our website, and it's a great search tool if you ever looking for a certain product and want to know if there's a gluten-free option. It'll let you know which brands are available. And now just a couple upcoming events. So we host a Gluten-Free 101 webinar every month. This is intended for newly diagnosed individuals and people looking for a refresher on how to live gluten-free. So the next presentation is actually next Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, 4 p.m. Pacific. And then the April session is on Monday, April 11th at 6 p.m. Eastern, 3 p.m. Pacific. And if you go to our website, celiac.ca/events, you can register for either of those sessions if you're interested. We also have next month another webinar related to wills and planned gifts. This webinar will focus on legacy giving and how you can benefit a charity as well as your family in your will. Our speaker will be Jennifer Stebbing, who is the Vice President of the CCA's Board of Directors. Jennifer is a partner at Miller Thomson LLP in the Private Client Services Practice Group. She practices predominantly in the area of estate planning, administration, and accounting. So we're so excited to have her and all of her expertise in this area joining us. So that'll be on Thursday, April 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. And again, same website, celiac.ca/events, and you can sign up for that webinar there as well. And also later this month, we are excited to partner again with the Davis Family Farm to bring you our sunflower seed sale. You can support the CCA by purchasing packets of seeds through our website beginning on March 18th. $4 from every package of the Davis Family Farm sunflower seeds goes directly to supporting programs and services that empower individuals and family with celiac disease. So look we'll be posting on our social media and sending out emails once the sale has gone live, and you can order seeds and they'll get shipped right to you, and you can plant those this spring and watch them grow. And finally, the CCA relies on the generosity of our donors. We hope that you will consider helping to empower families with celiac disease by donating. You can do this through our website. If you go to our homepage, right in the top corner, there's a Donate Now button, or you can contact me directly with any questions. I'll provide my contact information in the chat box. And now on to the reason you are all here tonight. I'm pleased to welcome Matt Renzoni, who is our presenter. Matt is the head of client success at Wilfora, Canada's first free wills and legacy giving platform that has helped thousands of Canadians protect their loved ones and support their favorite causes. Matt's initial path to working with charities was cultivated through his love for the world's oceans and the need to protect their ecosystems. In his spare time, Matt enjoys scuba diving, skiing, and teaching yoga. Welcome, Matt, and thank you for being here tonight.
Awesome. Thanks, Megan. And thank you so much, everyone, for having me tonight and taking an hour out of your Thursday evening to talk about wills and estate planning. Because I can imagine for sure there are plenty of more interesting ways to spend your evening. And we already got comments saying I love yoga, which is great. So I'm excited to speak to you all today on a topic that I'm very passionate about. And this is with reference to estate planning and your options for creating a will. But also we're going to talk a little bit about legacy giving and values-based giving, really. One of the amazing things I find with being able to give a gift in your will, whether that's to a charity, is the fact that in Canada and the US specifically, we're used to giving to charity when asked. And so being able to give a gift in a will is such a personal decision and so values-based. And it's something that really is a way to create an opportunity and an amazing, it's an amazing way to create an opportunity for charities to thrive in the future. So if you want to get into the first slide here, Megan, I'm going to get into a couple of stats on some wills and on legacy giving. So if anyone here does not currently have a will, you are not alone. So over 50% of Canadians actually don't have a will. And this is because generally there's a lot of inertia around this process. And I'll dive into this shortly, but like I said, if you don't currently have a will, you are not alone in this aspect. Another piece that we're going to talk about today is legacy giving, of course, and being able to give a gift in your will and donate to charity. So we actually know that about 86% of Canadians are aware that they can leave a gift in their will, yet only actually 5% of Canadians do so. And that's interesting compared to similar countries like the US, the UK, and Australia, where that percentage is actually over 10%. What's even further is, and this will be a focus in the next session next month with Jennifer Stebbing, is the fact that Canada has some of the greatest tax benefits in the world to be able to leave a gift in a will. So even what we've actually seen and more recently is the Canadian Association of Gift Planners, which is kind of the governing body around what's at the forefront of estate planning and new trends and estate giving professionals. Is the fact that if we went from 5% to 8.5%, that would actually represent a $40 billion opportunity for charities in Canada. And so when we talk about whether we want the money to go to the taxman or charities, it really is a no-brainer to a lot of people. But I think you'll find some of these pieces in my session today, as well as the session next month. You'll hopefully be able to break down some of these barriers to what prevents you from creating a will and why you should have a will in the first place here. So if you want to go to the next slide, Megan, we're going to talk first about why you should have a will. So first and foremost, it's about protecting your loved ones. So if you have minor children, it's about assigning guardians for these people, assigning backups in case you're predeceased by those guardians or they do not want to act in the place of a guardian. Also, many of us don't have children as well. So many of us who don't have children have pets, and we want to make sure that guardians are assigned for our pets and our pets are taken care of in the event of our unexpected passing. So this is essentially it's a great way to ensure that your loved ones will be protected when you eventually do leave this earth. So the second piece here is gaining peace of mind around your assets. So we accumulate a lot of stuff throughout our lives, needless to say, of course, whether that's property, vehicles, heirlooms such as jewelry and prized possessions. Any of this stuff, we want to make sure that this gets passed down to the right people, right? And a will is the way that we do that. So for example, as a random example that I have, my dad loves to collect guitars. He's collected guitars ever since he was in his 20s. And he has a guitar collection that he wants to make sure will be passed down to the right people. That being myself, because I was his child that really took an interest in music specifically. So really, in his will, he has a designation that I will inherit all of his guitar collection, so that I can ensure that it goes to the right places, and I know how to sell them off, right? So this is just one random example, but it's really about making sure that your assets are split among your children. And even the third opportunity here is to leave some of your assets to a cause. So legacy gifts. This actually can be the biggest gift you ever give in your lifetime, really. What we track is that a legacy gift can actually be about 6 times the size of the total value of donations you make to charities throughout your lifetime. And like I mentioned, right, there's potential tax benefits of this where you don't have to take away from what your children or your loved ones will inherit from your estate. And it's also the opportunity to make a very personal decision that can have a lasting impact on charity. So we've set the stage for why it's important, but like I said, right, 51% of Canadians don't have a will. So why is that? That's going to be on the next slide. So Megan, if you want to pivot over to our barriers slide. Now, there's 3 really, really big barriers to why people typically don't have a will. The first one is just a general complexity. A lot of people don't know where to start, right? There's a lot of procrastination that takes place, and it takes people a lot of the time months, if not even years, to actually get around to this. One of the best testimonials we've actually had at Wilfora was that we were able to make a 10-year process into 20 minutes for somebody, which is great feedback, but at the same time, it really speaks to the fact of how long people drag their feet on this. So 10 years, a lot can change in your life, and for a lot of people, 10 years is really 3 to 5 updates, depending on what stage of your life you're in. So the complexity is probably the biggest barrier in this space. When we move on to price, obviously, going to see a lawyer has typically been a costly affair, and luckily that's been made a lot more accessible in recent years and affordable, but it can really cost up to $3,000 in some cases, including power of attorney documents for couples. But like I said, creating estate plans have become a little bit more affordable, and the price really seems to make people not want to update their will as much as they may need. So when you think of, for example, getting to the age of 40, right? Likely either you have children, you're married, and you bought a house. You probably have 2 of those 3 at least, and that's all 3 updates. All of those 3 events are updates to your will, right? So when people don't update their will as often as they should, you risk your assets not being passed down to the right people, and it being up to date on what your assets actually are. So that's why price is a factor in this as well. And the last one is time. So when we talk about, depending on where you live, right, driving to a lawyer for multiple meetings can be inconvenient, or even it can be inconvenient for you based on if you live in a rural community where your access is a little bit less than in an urban community. Or for example, you and your spouse, you're both working, busy people. It's hard for you to take some time off during the day, as opposed to finding some time in the evening to just do this in an online format, if that makes sense for you. So there's lots of different implications around time, but also we got to mention the fact that COVID has made also traveling a concern for a lot of people, and that's why we've actually seen on our end a huge surge in the number of people creating wills and creating their wills online over the past 2 years. So there's your barriers for you. Now I want to jump into the next slide, which is on options. So I'll break these down for you, and there's really 2 types of wills that we're creating here. We're either creating a holographic will or an adult witness will that's either being drafted through a lawyer or through an online service. Now, holographic will, or also known as a military will, these are still legal in Canada and very uncommon these days, but it's worth mentioning that this is one way of creating a will. These are completely handwritten and just signed by you, usually only done in an emergency or near-death situation. So, for example, there was a story of a car accident out in BC a few years ago, where somebody had actually created a holographic will while they were waiting for EMS to arrive. Mainly though, the concern with this and the limitation is that handwriting all of the things you want to put into a will is not a very efficient way of doing things. And so the other piece too is it's not the best way to make sure that what you're saying will be interpreted correctly once you pass away. So that's holographic wills. When we move over to lawyer drafted online wills, like I said, they're both wills that are drafted, and we call them adult witness wills. Now, the biggest benefit to having a lawyer draft your will is the fact that you can speak to somebody for advisory, especially in situations where your requirements may not be what we call a simple estate. So when we refer to a simple estate, that means the simple estate requirements without complex drafting needed. The more complex drafting would be needed typically in two scenarios, really. If you have a child with special needs, where you would have to set up a Henson trust is one of them. And the second one is blended families. So there's simple and complex blended families, and complex blended families are when it would always be advantageous for you to see a lawyer, because, and by the way, complex blended family means multiple children from multiple marriages. Now, the third one here is online wills. So Wilfora is a platform that allows Canadians to create wills online. Now, these are adult witness wills drafted using online apps. Like I mentioned, there's been a big surge in this due to the recent pandemic, and a lot of also just because it's an event where people think about mortality, right? So these are different than will kits. You may have seen will kits in the past that will prep you to go see a lawyer. These will actually produce a legal document for you instead of prepping you to go see a lawyer. Now, the disadvantage to an online will is, of course, the fact that they're made for simple estates. So if you do have a child with special needs or are in a complex blended family, then those are scenarios where you should always go to see a lawyer. The online wills and apps also have signing and storing instructions on how to make your will legal, because of course your will not be legal until it's signed by two witnesses. So if there's any questions on this, feel free to put them into the chat and we can answer them at the end. But we're going to move on to another piece here, which I actually think is well, I don't think it's the most overlooked. I was going to say I actually think it's the part of this conversation that I'm most passionate about, but it is the most overlooked piece of the conversation, and that is the fact of sharing intentions with family members. So once you create your will, a lot of people think it's my will and I'm done, okay? But there are that doesn't mean that there are conversations that you don't need to have with family members. So when you create a will and you designate who is going to inherit your estate and all of those other pieces in each piece of your estate, this piece can also be overlooked, often be overlooked due to the discomfort that a lot of people have with talking about death and having tough conversations. So one of the pieces here to mention is the fact that sometimes you can make intentions that your family may not have full clarity on unless you explain that to them. So for the example I always use is what happens if you have two daughters and you leave your first daughter your diamond ring. So if you don't have a conversation with your daughters in your lifetime, as hard as that conversation may be, when you eventually do pass away, that may leave more opportunity for them to have questions about this. The last thing you want to do is pass away with your children or your loved ones having questions about why you did a specific thing, or for example, even why you left a specific gift to a charity, really. If you leave a gift to a charity in your will and your children don't know about that, then there's an opportunity for them to have questions about that. We also often get questions in terms of the format a will is drafted and if there's a higher likelihood that someone will contest a will. So what we actually see though is when it comes down to contesting wills, it's very rarely the format and most likely and almost always due to family dynamics and a conversation that didn't happen in that person's lifetime. Really to summarize here, it's just people often feel that a gift to charity as well will take away from their child's inheritance. And like I've been speaking about, there are tax benefits of doing this as well, where in Canada, right, we have some of the best tax benefits in the world. And the fact that you can, if you knew, for example, that you could give less money to the tax man and more money to charity, then a lot of people would actually do that. So this is especially something to speak with your children and speak with your loved ones and speak with your financial advisor about as well. So we'll move on, and I'm going to go through I'm just going to take you through an experience of what an online will can look like. So I'm going to show you a demo of what our platform looks like specifically, if this is something that you may see fit for you. What our service allows you to do is create a legally binding will in 20 minutes free of charge. It allows you to, of course, protect the loved ones, protect your assets, assign guardians and executors. And we also have the ability for you to support charities. And you can have an account that lives with you throughout your lifetime, and so that you can update as needed. You will never pay a penny for this. This is our funding actually comes through the support of charities like the Canadian Celiac Association. And so it's always free to any Canadian to create or update their will with us. And for those of you in Ontario as well, you also have access to power of attorney documents, and that's power of attorney for personal care and for property. Now, before I actually go into the demo here and show you kind of how this would look like if you were to create a will for yourself, I want to make a quick disclaimer because we've done webinars like this before with charities, and I got a question. I've gotten a couple of questions saying, hey, that was pretty simple. Is it really that easy, and does it really take this small, short of an amount of time? The answer is yes and no. Essentially, I've done this survey. I've gone through this experience hundreds of times. So today I'm going to go through it quite a bit faster than likely you would, because I don't have to stop and think about all of these pieces. When it comes to the point of assigning guardians and executors, those are opportunities where you may get to that step and go, I should have a conversation with my spouse about this, and we should decide what fits best. So you can always come in and out of the service to create or change any parameters of your actual will, as long as you create the document in the end and sign off and update as needed. So I'm going to share my screen with you in just a second here, and we'll get right into the demo. So we're going to originate on Willfora.com here. So the first thing we're going to do is sign up to create an account here. So I'm just going to gather some information. Of course, we're going to create an account using an email and a password. And we'll go and continue. Perfect. I'm going to click continue here. So essentially we're going to start going into an onboarding sequence. So just like any app or even when you're going to see a lawyer, we're going to gather some information on this person so we can customize the will to their needs. So we'll click continue, and I'll add in my name. I'm going to use Appleseed for all of the last names here, just so everybody knows. We're going to ask for some date for the date of birth of this person so we know how old they are. Obviously, we're going to customize for specific pronouns. We're going to ask gender. Oops, sorry about that. There we go. And then we're going to ask for marital status here. I'm going to show you an example today that would look like what something would look like if we're married and we have children. The only big difference here is that if we're not married and we're creating an individual will, then we wouldn't be creating a mirrored will with our spouse, and we'd be assigning beneficiaries and naming them as opposed to leaving the estate to our children and our spouse. So I'll show you married, and then I'll say that we have children. Of course, it's going to ask us as well if we have pets, which I'm going to say we do. And then it's going to ask us if we own or rent a home. So for this one, I'm going to say that I own a home. And then here, I'm going to stop here for just a second, because you're going to find that there's these little blue bubbles that are going to come up throughout the experience. And these are just going to sprinkle in some legal information. So in case you come to a step like this and you say, and it says, approximate value of your total assets and property. And you go, what does that actually mean? These bubbles are for you to have a little bit more information on what constitutes as your assets and property here. So I'm going to go in the mid-range. And then we're going to ask if you have life insurance. Now, we're never going to ask for a policy number or anything like that. This is so that when you do create a will and you do pass away, we know that there is a life insurance policy that this person has as well. I'm going to go next, and then I'm going to say I live in Toronto. So for anyone in Toronto, by the way, hello. And we'll click next. So now we've gotten to a step where the apps recognize that because I'm married and I have children, it's recommending that I do a mirrored will. So mirrored will meaning I do a will with my spouse. So it's just going to give us an idea of what we're about to do and all of the important pieces we're about to add for the specific will here. And then I'm going to click and continue. So I'm going to continue, and we just have a statement about making an impact with your will, because obviously the service is free. We're going to go through. Sorry, I'm using the demo environment we have, so sometimes it gets a little bit funky. There we go. And then it's going to ask to confirm my email, which I'll do at the end of the sequence here, and continue. So then it's going to ask for some information on our spouse. I'll add their information in. So we'll say Mary Appleseed, and we'll add in their date of birth, and we'll add their email as well, since this will be a joint account. And we'll save that. So then we're going to ask for some information on the person's children. I'm just going to say that I have one child. And I'm going to say that they are a minor. So the only difference really here is if they are minors, we're going to assign guardians for them, and we're going to create an inheritance plan. We'll save. It's going to ask about a pet. So anybody on the webinar today who has pets, you can also leave. You can also add your pets into your will, leave some money for the care and their support, as well as assign guardians in the event that you pass away before they do. So I'm going to say I have a dog named Rocky, and I'll add that pet. So we'll click save for now. And then we get to the section here where we can start actually creating the specific document. So like I mentioned, because I'm in Ontario, so Wilfora is available in every province with the exception of Quebec. And we have power of attorney documents as well available in Ontario. So because I said I was from Ontario, we have both of these documents. But I'm going to go in and create the will, and we'll click to get started here. So we're about to start creating our will, so it's just going to give us an idea of what we're about to do and all of the important pieces along the way. So, and then it'll give us a bit of an idea of time, how long it's going to take. Because like I mentioned, I'm very familiar with it. I'm probably going to take a lot less time than what it says up here. I'm going to click create, and then we'll assign some guardians. So I hope, Megan, you're okay with being a guardian for my children, by the way. And we'll always assign backups as well. So we have the opportunity to assign as many backups as we would like along the way. So I'll just assign one for now, and we'll click save. And then guardians for pets. I'll do the same people. We'll have a backup as well. And then also, like I mentioned, we can leave some money to designate in the will for the care and the support to the guardians for the support of the pets. So I'm going to say yes, and let's leave Rocky $5,000. So we'll save that. So now we've gotten to a section that we call Leave a Legacy. And this is where you have the opportunity to support charities that you may have a connection to, and you may want to pay a gift forward at some point in your life and leave a gift through your will. So you can do that through here. You can you can search for any CRA registered charity in our database. So I'm going to search for, I'm going to search for the Canadian Celiac Association and leave a gift to them today. Oh, there we are. Celiac Association. Oh, there we are. Canadian Celiac Association. We've got the Calgary chapter. We've got all of them, and there we are. So always, because there's several chapters of charities, make sure that you do leave a gift to the specific chapter or to the broader the broader overarching charity that you would like to leave one to. So today I'm leaving one to a gift to the Canadian Celiac Association. Now I'm going to we have the opportunity to leave a cash gift or a residual gift. Main difference between the two is a cash gift will be the same value throughout your lifetime. A residual gift is a percentage of your estate. So that would be associated with the total value of your estate. So I'm going to leave a 1% residual gift. And we also have the opportunity to leave a message to the charity on perhaps maybe why you decided to leave this gift, or just a little bit more information on why you like to support this cause. So I'm just going to say, please use for gluten-free Canadians. Clever of me, I know. So I'm going to then say, it's going to ask me as well if I would like to share my information with the charity and let it be known that I've left a gift to them. And I'm going to choose that I would like them to know that I've left a gift to them today. So I will share and save. And then for specific gifts, I'm going to skip over this piece. This is where if you had grandchildren, for example, you could leave a specific amount of money towards them. If you have real estate, vehicles, and we talked about heirlooms such as jewelry and the diamond ring, that's where you would create all of those, or you would do all of that here. I'm going to skip over this just for now, and then we'll get into assigning executors. So executors, extremely important as well, and to deal with the administration of your estate. So make sure you choose the right person for this one, and you have that conversation with them as well. So I'm going to choose same thing. And always, again, always important to assign backups. So, and we can assign as many backups as we would like. So once I've assigned my executors and my backups, I will save that. Then when we finish off here, we have beneficiaries. So I am going to choose to divide equally among children. We have inheritance plans for you, because we said the children are minors. We have inheritance plans for minor children, and we can designate the age we would like them to inherit everything. So I'm going to go with the age of majority in Ontario, which is 18. And then finally, we'll come to the final wishes and how we would like to be celebrated. So for this one, I'm just going to say that I'd like to be cremated. Next. And then this is a section we try and make a little bit light because, you know, these are our serious considerations, of course. So you may find that I'm going to say wake and celebration. And you may find that if you do go choose to get on the service, you may see a little Easter egg at the bottom that could be some different things. And in this case, it's play I Don't Want to Miss a Thing by Aerosmith at my funeral service, which is actually in our CEO's will. And we have a couple of others that have been in past employees' wills as well. So get creative and really think about how you would like to be celebrated, of course. We'll save. And then finally, we have an opportunity to review and edit. So you can see a nice big text here, all of the things that we've done, and if we've made any spelling mistakes or we've added too many gifts by accident, or we want to change anything at this point, we can always do that here. But it looks pretty good for me so far. So what I'm going to do here is click view and print. And then I'm going to verify my email address. So just bear with me for a second here as just bear with me for a second. Megan, if there's any questions in the chat box, and I'm just gonna hop into my email to verify this piece and go forward. But if there's any questions in the chat box that we can answer now, I'm happy to go through a couple of them while we're waiting here.
Sure. So I do have one question about leaving a gift to charities. Mm-hmm. What happens if you left a gift and the charity ends up closing before, or I guess, yeah, before your gift can be given to them?
That's a tough question. Yeah, very, very, very good question. So obviously legacy gifts are one way that allow charities to exist for a longer period of time, especially because of the value of them. If the charity ends up closing, that gift will be void. So if the charity no longer exists, that section of your will just be void and will be taken out. The money will just go down to the rest of your, so if it's to your children, the rest of that money that was supposed to be going to the charity would just go down to your children instead.
All right, that makes sense.
So we're back at the section now where we're ready to actually view our will. So we're going to finish off here just quickly, and you'll see that this has changed and we can actually view our will. So just so you all know as well, once you click to view your will, you're going to have a PDF document downloaded. And so then once you click on that, you can view the actual will that you just created. A couple of things, I'm not going to go through any specific pieces of this will, but I just want to go over the instructions here. So all of our wills will come with instructions on how to make this document legal, because obviously you do need to print it off and sign it. So we have some instructions here on making sure you review it carefully, as well as signing and witnessing. So we'll call out, of course, that all of your witnesses, or that your 2 witnesses, must be the age of majority in the province that you live in. As well, we'll also call out that there are some specific people we've named in the will who are either a beneficiary or they've been listed as an executor. And so we'll call these people out and say that they cannot be present at the signing of the will. So you have to find 2 people that are any people other than these people. So once you are able to sign and witness, the next step is to store it safely in a safe place, such as a fireproof box, a secure cabinet. You can also store this at your bank. So there's plenty of options as long as it is secure. And another piece is as long as your executor knows where your documents are. And the last piece, like I mentioned too, is our hope is this account can live with you throughout your lifetime, and you can update as you need. So really what I see as the best way to go about making sure your will is up to date is every year when you're doing your taxes, have a look over your life insurance policy, have a look over your will as well, and your power of attorney documents, and see if there's any changes that you made in the year. So maybe perhaps you bought a house, maybe perhaps you had a child, maybe you inherited a piece of property or something like that. But these are all instances where you should look to update your will. So hopefully updating it as needed and having the account for your throughout your lifetime will be helpful for you to be able to get these updated and ensure that they're always up to date. So that actually concludes the demo. I'm going to stop sharing my or if Megan, you want to drop back in here and share your screen on the next slide there. That's going to be it. I'm happy to jump into any questions unless there's anything you want to end off with here, Megan. Oh, I think you're on mute there.
Yes, I am. Thank you. Thanks so much, Matt. That was really helpful. Yes, just a quick reminder to everybody that we do have another legacy giving webinar that'll be hosted by Jennifer Stubbing. That'll be on April 7th at 8 p.m. Eastern, 5 p.m. Pacific. She is a lawyer with her practices in estates and estate planning, administration, and accounting. And I will drop the link to our events page in the chat here. And otherwise, yes, if you have any questions about legacy giving in relation with the Canadian Celiac Association, and if we don't get that answered tonight, feel free to reach out to me. My email address is there, clientrelations@celiac.ca. And yeah, I think we are good to get into some questions now. So if you have any questions, feel free to drop them into the Q&A, and Matt and I will do our best to get those answered.
There's a few questions in the chat here too. I can start off with there's one that says, what are the challenges of donating property to a charity in a will, and is it recommended, and is there issues for the charity? That's a conversation you should have with that charity. So donating property, it depends on the charity, really. And I think even yourself or Melissa may have even a better opinion on this, depending on whether whether your charity does like to accept gifts of property. So it really depends on having a conversation with the charity. It's recommended if you do speak with the charity and it is something that they would like to inherit from you. And the real issue essentially with it is if you just leave a piece of property to a charity that doesn't know what to do with it, right? So that's just one. I mean, it's a good question actually, because this comes up more than you would think actually, because we have instances where we've spoken with charities who have had all of a sudden people leave a whole box of jewelry to the charity and they have no idea what to do with it. So there are instances like this all the time. There's one question that says public notary options. So that's Maxine. Maxine, so public notary options are available in Quebec specifically. And I mean, public notary options are available. We don't have a public notary option available with Wilfora, or I believe any other online service do not have public notary options available. In Quebec, they're always available, and they are, I mean, because the legal system is slightly different, notaries are really the specialists in wills, and in that province, I'd always recommend going to see a notary or a lawyer as well. So yeah.
Great. Cynthia, I think that's a Cynthia, asked, is there a way to split the charitable gift between 2 or more charities?
Yeah, of course. You can leave as many gifts to as many charities as you'd like to. I mean, if the sky is the limit, it just depends on how much of your estate you want to give away to charity, right? So yeah, you can, I mean, for example, in the demo I just showed you, you can search for as many charities as you'd like, and you can leave whether it's in a cash form, whether it's in a format of a cash gift, or you can leave 1% of your estate, or you can kind of calculate if you, for example, didn't have children and wanted to leave your 50% of your estate to one charity and the other 50% to another, you can always do that as well.
And also, can you specify a fund or purpose within a charity? So I guess the gift you're leaving, which you could do that in the message box to the charity, right?
Yeah, so with us, you can leave that in the message box. You can give more information on your gift. Now, if you're specifying for a fund or a purpose within a charity, that's a conversation to have with the charity as well. Definitely, so yeah. That's a conversation that I imagine you have with donors all the time, right? Where they specifically would like their gift to go. So because it depends on the charity. I mean, depending on the charities we work with, we have charities who like the gifts to go to the greatest need at the time. But then there's also, for example, if you were to leave a gift to a university, for example, then that's an opportunity where they would always like you to designate which faculty you would like to leave it to. So it depends on the nature of the charity, and it depends on what specifically you would like to leave it to, and if the fund is available for you to do that.
For Wilfora, can you e-sign the will, or do you need to print it and physically sign it?
Printing and physically sign.
Okay, good to know. Let me pop
I think I've got one here from Cheryl. So it says we did our will many years ago through a lawyer. It was not done the way you just demonstrated. It has a will, the power of attorney, and the living will. All of the things left for the beneficiaries are written out by hand by us. Is this okay? It depends. If nothing has changed in your estate, then I would imagine if you did it with a lawyer and everything was, and all of your parameters were added in, then that should be your legal document. If anything in your estate has changed since then, for perhaps, maybe some grandchildren have come along, maybe some children have come along, maybe there's new property, then you should definitely update your will with all of the new pieces of your estate involved in that. So I hope that answers your question.
Great. So I see a question in the chat and also in the Q&A. If I have an old will with a lawyer, can I still create a new will with an online service like Wilfora?
Yeah, of course. You can create, if you have a will with us and you want to create a will with a lawyer, or you have a will with a lawyer and you want to create a will with us, you can move over at any point. Just keep in mind the fact that you can only have one will. So from the date that you sign your will, if you were to create your will today, that will revoke all previous wills and codicils. You can only have one will that is legal and the most updated version of it. So if, for example, you created a will with a lawyer in the past and you wanted to use an online service, the online will will be your updated document will revoke that previous will as well. And if you are storing that specific will, that would now be out of date, I would always recommend disposing of that and actually shredding it.
Great. Belinda asked if the witnesses to the will, do they need to outlive you?
So the witnesses to the will do not need to outlive you. Your executor and your guardians need to outlive you. Yes. Good question, actually. Yeah, I don't get that one very often.
Yeah, that is. And what are the Wilfora's privacy policies like? What do you do with information that is put into the system, I guess?
Of course. So our data is all housed in Canada. We don't use your data for anything other than to report gifts to charities that we work with and help them bridge the connection back to you to thank you for your gift. So like I said, data is all housed in Canada. The other piece too is we have partnerships with financial institutions such as Sun Life, where they recommend Wilfora as their exclusive online will provider to all of their members. So in order to do that, we've had to pass through bank level security compliance. So we're very confident with the service and in terms of the security on it. If you have any more questions, you can actually go onto our website and look at our privacy policy, and you'll see all the data security piece there.
Great. Question from the Q&A. I'm not sure if you have any advice for this person. So they asked, how do we help someone create a will who has some medical issues and have little time to get a will done due to labor-intensive medical appointments? Should I just encourage they at least start on a power of attorney?
So yes and yes. So especially if the person. So can you read the question one more time?
How do we help someone create a will who has some medical issues and has little time to get a will done? Should I just encourage they at least start on a power of attorney?
So yes, of course, encourage they start on a power of attorney, especially when we're talking about a power of attorney for health. That would be the first document I would say to have in process, because it would be the most relevant. In terms of updating their will, it's also highly recommended. Whether you use an online service or a lawyer, if a lawyer is inconvenient, then an online service is available. When we talk about if this person has some health issues, then then they can still use an online service. It's really if you have a child with special needs, where you would have to go see a lawyer to ensure that Henson Trust is set up to cover them when they go on to become an adult as well.
All right. Ingrid asked, what if you don't have someone reliable to be an executor? I'm assuming you don't want the executor to also be one of your beneficiaries.
Mm-hmm. So in these cases too, and this happens in a lot of cases where someone is assigned as an executor and they either don't want to serve as in that role. What you can do is, so if, for example, if you were to pass away and you assigned an executor who doesn't want to serve, then there are services that financial institutions have enabled. So for example, I know RBC has one, I believe Scotia and TD have the same thing, where you can hire a wealth advisor to serve as your to basically serve as your estate administrator and work with your executor. You would have to pay them to do all of the disposition of the estate, but I've been told from the people that I know who have had the service done that it's really helpful, especially in a time when people are grieving as well.
Great. And Pauline asked, what if your favorite charity is not listed in Wilfora?
So if your favorite charity is not listed in Wilfora, email me. And we will make sure that they're listed. As long as if your favorite charity is not a CRA registered charity, then you can't leave a gift to them, unfortunately, in your will. But if they are CRA registered and they're not listed in our database, then please send us an email. It's just hello@wilfora.com, and yeah, we'll make sure that the charity is added. We have sometimes these pieces, so we pull from the CRA list of charities, and sometimes there's nuances, and they're always changing and adding charities. So sometimes we find that there are some charities that people have not been added. So if that is the case, then please just email us. You'll actually, if you go through the service and actually get to that searching for the charity, you'll see the email pop up right above and say, if you can't find the charity you're looking for, please email us.
And this might be a good question for Jennifer Stebbings' webinar. This is from Eldora. So Eldora, if you are interested to learn more, you can sign up for that webinar. But how does legacy giving save my family in taxes?
So Jennifer Stebbings can talk a lot better around this piece than myself. Essentially, there are tax benefits to leaving a charitable gift in your will, where essentially, if you work with your financial advisor to calculate the amount of your estate, it's essentially you're trying to offset the tax that would be added to your estate in the year you pass away. So what a lot of people don't know is the year that you pass away, you will have a very big tax bill. And one way to offset the amount of money you owe to the tax man is to leave a gift to a charity. I'm not going to speak a lot further on that, because that's not the tax benefits piece is not my area of expertise, and it would be explained a lot better by Jennifer Sebbing, but I will leave you with that piece specifically.
Great, that's helpful. And I've seen in the chat and the Q&A, if you could just explain the witness requirements again. And does the will need to be notarized?
So in Quebec, a will needs to be notarized. In every other province, no. So in terms of witnessing, you need to find 2 witnesses. They need to be over the age of majority in the province that you live in, and they cannot be listed. They cannot be a beneficiary of your estate or your executor. And as well, obviously, like I had mentioned, you would need a wet signature on our wills specifically. If you're doing it with a lawyer, I believe there are some instances, especially because the pandemic made this possible, where you can do digital signatures now. So if that's the road you're taking, then go that way. If you're going to use an online service, then you will need two wet signatures as well.
And as well, if you create the will in one province but move to another, is it still valid?
Good question, but sadly no. So if you move from one province to another, that is also a trigger event to update your will.
Good to know. I didn't know that actually. Let me see here.
It's mainly just because there are specific statutes that are different in each province, right? There's small nuances in wills between provinces, but they are significant in the event that you do move from province to province.
Okay.
Matt and Megan, I'm just going to chime in. It's Melissa Secord. There was a comment about someone asking, what if they wanted to designate funds to a specific sort of wording. Mm-hmm. And when you designate let's say to a specific program, let's say Save Me for Gluten-Free, the difficulty or the challenge for the charity is if that program no longer exists when you pass and the funds come, the charity is unable to move those funds into another program. Or if the program, let's say, is overfunded. So let's say there's an initiative, you write that specific initiative in, and that initiative is already funded. The charity actually cannot spend those dollars. And unfortunately, as a donor, you really want your dollars to go to something, that is active, that leaves that legacy, that's put into action. So just to caution, if there's a specific program you like, you can put it down, but also maybe say, and other programs that may be, beneficial to the charity. Like leave it, have some general terms around it. So you give the charity the flexibility to, put your funds to good use if that program's no longer going, or keep the area broad, research or, programs and supports. But certainly I think, Matt, you would recommend just talk to the charity and get some guidance before you put that down, just to ensure that you leave that legacy that you truly want to do.
Of course, yeah. Always speak with the charity, especially if you're going to leave a legacy gift to a charity, likely you've given to them before, you've interacted with the charity in some way before. So yeah, don't be a stranger to the charity, and they're always going to want to speak to you and help you out in whatever way that that you need. So yeah, have those conversations.
Thanks, Melissa. Actually, if you would also be able to help answer another question about leaving a gift for the national organization and the chapter. So what does it make a difference if a gift is left for the chapter only? Because I know for Canadian Celiac Association, we have chapters across the country, and then we also have the national organization, and we all operate individually.
Right. So the chapters are independent charities unto themselves and have a registered charity number. It is helpful if you put the registered charity number down, because sometimes charities like CCA, for example, is going to be sort of giving legs them out of the bag, but we are going to modify our name to be a little bit more modern in the coming years. But if you have that charity number that is linked to the specific charity, you can leave a gift for CCA National and for the chapter. Just again, always note that if let's say a chapter happens to close, you know, those funds just go right back to your family or whoever you've designated. It won't just stream up automatically to the CCA National. Yeah, you could possibly designate the funds to CCA National with a portion going to a chapter if it is still in operation. That could be something that we could look at. Again, talk to us. We can speak to some members of our board. Jennifer Stebbing is a board director, so we can check on with her in terms of just from those legal aspects. So
great, thank you. For Matt, for Wilfora, if you are the sole owner of an incorporated company, small business, does Wilfora also cover a business? Oh, you're on mute.
This happens every day. So if you are the sole, I was looking at this question as well. If you're the sole proprietor of a company and you want to set up and make sure that, and you want to make sure that everything is distributed the way you want for your personal estate as well as your company, legal advisory is what I would recommend in that sense. So definitely go see a lawyer in that case.
Great, thank you. And Cheryl also asked, since we made our will, we now have grandchildren. I wrote them in by hand. Is that okay, or do I have to go back to the lawyer and do over the entire will?
So bad news is it's likely not okay. Good news is you don't have to go and write the entire will again. What you can go and do is add something called a codicil, which is an extra piece that you can add to the will, where you don't add any extra pieces, or it's not the will doesn't become completely new, but a codicil will be added on as an extra gift or an extra person added into that will. So codicil, yeah, C-O-D-I-C-I-L is what you're looking for.
Okay. And Janet asked, do your witnesses need to know your executor and beneficiary info?
Your witnesses need to know your executor and beneficiary info. No, they don't. Your witnesses are signing to ensure that you've created a legal document, essentially, right? The witnesses, I mean, like we said, the witnesses can predecease you. It's ensuring that the executor knows essentially who your witnesses were and where your will is at the time of your passing.
All right. Don't know if there's anything else in the Q&A there that you want to cover.
Yeah, I'm looking at a couple right now. So okay. I have one that says, I live in Quebec, and do you recommend an online will? And if yes, can you recommend any providers in Quebec? So I would recommend an online will. I believe there is a service in Quebec. There's two called Legal Wills is one of them, and the other one is called Willful.
Great.
There's one that says, what about not-for-profit NGOs? Regardless of what they are, they have to be a registered Canadian charity. So if you're looking for for an NGO or a non-for-profit, they need to be you can check on the CRA website if they are a registered charity, or you can check on that charity or that not-for-profit's website as well. Oh, I think that was just a comment there. And so there's another one. I just want to make sure I have all of these. So there's one that says, is there an online means of completing a personal directive outside of Ontario? I can use Willfora this aspect in Ontario and not in other provinces. So that's just the way that's just the nature of the service right now. So we're currently just piloting power of attorney documents in Ontario. This is something new for us. We will be looking to move these out to the rest of the provinces that we're operating in as well. I do want to mention power of attorney documents or personal directives. I'm assuming perhaps you live in BC. The power of attorney documents or personal directives, these are a little bit, these change province to province quite a bit. So there's just some things we're working through in that sense and trying to make sure that we have everything in place before we launch in any other province.
All right, I'm just going to put the link in as well to Wilfora in the chat, so anyone can click on through there if you want to check out the program and get started on your own online will.
Awesome. I don't think I see any more questions, but thank you everyone for attending, and I think that I love all the comments, and so thank you to anyone who said this is informative and helpful. That's all we can hope at the end of the day, right?
Exactly. Thank you so much, Matt. This has been great, lots of information. And if anyone joined a bit late and didn't hear at the beginning, this is recorded, so we will have the recording out to you tomorrow with some other resources as well, and a survey just to let us know how we did and if you have any suggestions for any future webinar topics. Yes, if you have any questions, of course, please reach out to us. My email address is clientrelations@celiac.ca. It's in the chat there, and that'll also be in the email going out tomorrow. So I think that's it. Thanks again, Matt, and hope everyone has a great night.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
All right. Bye, everybody.